All right, here's analysis on the latest of the PM's visit to the US and the ongoing discontent with the French, what we can call it I think the French are angrier than we are, about the nuclear submarine fleet. Let's bring in Paul Kelly, editor-at-large of the Australian newspaper from Sydney. They're still furious, the French. Joe Biden says they should have been consulted. Boris Johnson's told them, get a grip. I have to say I'm with the British Prime Minister there and not so much the US President. This is not the only diplomatic issue that our PM's got to manage, though, is it, Paul? He's got the Chinese and now the Taiwanese wanting to join the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. How does he juggle it all, do you think?
There's a lot of global activity going on, Peter. And of course, the immediate news story is the French upset, the French anger, and everybody's trying to pacify the French in different ways and giving them different lectures or attempting to appease them in different ways. But look, what's actually happening here is the French trauma is concealing the historic nature of these events in Washington, because we're now seeing with two big events the emergence of a new geostrategic framework in the Indo-Pacific to balance the rise of China. And I'm referring to the Quad, the first face-to-face meeting of the four Quad leaders from America, Japan, India and Australia. That's a big deal. And then, of course, AUKUS, the further authorisation of the Defence Technology Partnership, the strategic partnership between Australia, Britain and America, which is designed to provide nuclear submarine technology to Australia. That's also a big deal. And these two events, these two agreements are what really matters here. At the end of the day, the French will be upset for quite a long period of time, unfortunately. That will have ramifications, but that's not the main event.
Yeah, look, the French have got long memories, but so should Australians. Go back to the First World War, the Great War. Think about the, 50, 60,000 Australian dead lying in cemeteries all across France. I think we have the right to change our mind here, and I wouldn't be taking a backward step with the French. It's causing cracks, this nuclear deal, though, with Labor. Cracks are there inside Labor. We've seen Paul Keating. He was out the other day. He was out again yesterday having a swipe at Penny Wong. He accused her of being complicit with the Morrison government on foreign policy. Two of her colleagues, though, have hit back. Senior Victorian MP Anthony Burns said Keating had done the ALP a great disservice. Peta Credlin, also a Victorian, suggested the former PM was willfully blind to Chinese aggression. Wong had a speech today to the US Studies Centre. She raised concerns about an over-reliance on American military might. Let's have a listen.
With the prospect of a higher level of technological dependence on the United States, how does the Morrison-Joyce government assure Australians that we can act alone when need be, that we have the autonomy to defend ourselves, however and whenever we need to? And the anxiety expressed in some of the reactions to the AUKUS announcement suggests that more preparatory work could have been done to assure our partners of the practical implications of these announcements.
So on the day of announcement, Paul, Labor took a while to come out, but they were a little qualified, but they certainly supported the nuclear subs. I get a sense they feel like they're walking it back. What's this about?
Look, I think there are two things happening here, Peter. First of all, Labor is committed to this deal. There's no doubt that Labor is locked in. And the four key Labor figures that were briefed on it, Anthony Albanese, Richard Marles, Brendan O'Connor and Penny Wong, all signed up to it. The Shadow Cabinet signed up to it without a dissenting voice. So there's no doubt Labor is locked in. But there are political problems here for Labor. Essentially, they don't want to give Scott Morrison a huge victory on the eve of the election, and they've got their own rank and file to worry about. And of course, within the Labor rank and file and within the broader left, of course, there would be great suspicion and to a significant extent hostility to this deal. So what Labor's got to do, having signed up and having been locked in, they've got to build in some degree of product discrimination. That's essentially what Penny Wong was doing today in her speech. But at the end of the day, Labor knows it can't afford to go against this deal. That would give Scott Morrison a tremendous national security issue at the election.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I suppose. It's partially about holding on to the remnants of that vote that's leaking across to the Greens. Maybe that's front of mind for them as well. On that point, let's go to net zero. The PM's reiterated his commitment to President Biden that he's working towards, to use that phrase again, net zero 2050, wants to meet and beat 2030 targets. Now, we still don't know what the target is in informal sense, because he said he's not going to commit to it without knowing the costs and how we're going to pay for it. This Glasgow summit is looming. He's got colleagues out there now. They want the detail as soon as Parliament's back, and it's back in the middle of October. But now you've got this breakaway group led by Dave Sharma, who doesn't just want this 2050 commitment. He wants something mid-target, 2035, we're told. What's your read here for the coalition?
Well, the big situation here is what's happening between Scott Morrison on the one hand and Barnaby Joyce and the Nationals on the other. The way I read this, I think that the government is getting a little more confident. I don't want to exaggerate this, that they can reach an agreement. They can reach an internal agreement, which would be an agreement on a firm commitment for net zero at 2050. Frankly, I think they have to do this, and there'll be a big price to pay. And of course, the issue then becomes, Peter, if they do that, what happens to the medium-term target? But Scott Morrison is going to be under real intention. He'll be under real intense international pressure now from Biden, because Biden draws a separation between climate change and strategic issues. He's done the strategic deal with Morrison. He's going to put Morrison under pressure on climate change. And can you imagine what the Europeans are going to do? So Scott Morrison is going to be under a lot of pressure, but it all comes back to Australian domestic politics. And frankly, it comes back to whether the National Party wants to be a party of government or a party of protest. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we just hope all those international leaders put as much pressure on President Xi as they're putting on Prime Minister Morrison, but it's got a long way to play out yet. Paul Kelly, thank you.
I think that's a good point.
Thank you. Look forward to your column on the weekend.